So today we're going to talk about congruence. Look at these two guys. They're saying we look alike, but we're different. Is that confusing? Don't worry, we'll talk about similarities and congruence. Let's look at this. Now, you've seen this, right? Similar looking K-pop artists. These girls, they're different, but they look alike. Same with these male singers, right? You might think that he's the other guy, right? So we could say they look similar. Sometimes you look like somebody else from another class, right? So you two look similar. Now, we could say, if you look at these laptops, it is a class set of MacBooks. You could say those laptops are congruent. Are you sure? Yeah, because after a class, they stack up those laptops, okay, and they are congruent to each other. The sizes are, what can you say? Yeah, check those observations. So let's see the difference between similar and congruent. Write down your observations in the messages. Write down, share with your classmates. Let's pause this. Okay, what have we observed? So if they are similar, we could say, oh, they look alike. The color of the hairstyle, right, are the same. All right, their clothing may be the same. Okay, that's similar. Correct. What else? There's a slight difference. Okay, that's acceptable. What else? They have the same shape, right? If one lady is skinny, the other lady is skinny. Okay. What else? But maybe different size. Of course, they cannot be exactly the same. So again, that's similar. On the other hand, we see congruent. What do we mean by congruent? It looks exactly the same. The length of those MacBooks are the same as the length of the other MacBook. Same size, yes. You measure the angles, you measure the length, they're the same. And exactly the same shape. One MacBook is rectangular shape, the other MacBook cannot be triangular shape. Now, in geometry, geometric figures may also be similar or congruent. Look at all these rectangles, they're all similar. What does it mean? Same shape, but different sizes, right? And they may even follow a proportion, okay? Follow a proportion, a specific ratio, okay? And the symbol is this one. It's like a wavy line, all right? A wave line. A wave, just a wave, okay? Not a line. Now, the congruent, these are congruent rectangles. If you measure the length are all the same. If you measure the width are all the same. If that's 5, all the lengths are 5. If the width is 3, all the widths are 3. And the symbol we're going to use is this one. Check this out. Oh, by the way, they have the same shape and exactly the same sizes. And the symbol is still the wave with an equal sign under it. Equal meaning exactly the same. Okay, take note of that. Now let's practice what you've learned. Can you identify if these figures are similar or congruent? Use the symbols. Pause the video and I'll show you the answer. Let's start with this. Number 1, ready? Okay, here are the answers. Congruent. The next one. Surprise, they're congruent. I just uh, rotated it a little bit this way and it's exactly the same, right? Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. The next one is number 3, similar. Number 4, the other one is smaller, so similar. Again, the other one is smaller, similar. They're exactly the same, only the other one was flipped. So that is what? Congruent. Good job. Okay, next. All right, so today we're going to talk about congruent parts. Okay, parts. Look at the parts. Congruent segments have the same measurements. Check this out. Segment AB, this is segment AB, is obviously the same as segment XY. If you get a ruler and if you measure it, if that's 3 inches, the other one should exactly be 3 inches because they're congruent. I won't use U. Okay, so segment AB and segment, how do I name this? XY are congruent. Take note, they have the same measurement of the segments. Now, how about congruent angles? Congruent angles should also have the same measurements. Okay, so what does that mean? If if this angle is 51 degrees, the other angle should also be 51 degrees. I cannot use you because your measurement is the same. So these two are congruent. Angle A and angle B are congruent. Got it? The segments and the angles, they're exactly the same. Now, let's look at congruent figures. For two figures to be congruent, they are exactly the same shape and the same size, right? If you look at all of these drawings here, only these two triangles have the same shape and the same size. Okay, you are actually, this is a right triangle. You're not a square. You're not a trapezoid. You're a right triangle, but this side seems longer than the others, so I cannot use you. So again, exactly the same shape and the same size. And congruent figures, okay, we could say congruent sides and congruent angles. What do you mean by that? Check this out. So this side, the one in purple, is the same with that. Okay. The one in blue, this side is the same with that. Next, the one in yellow, this side is the same with that side. If you measure them, they're the same. What else? If you look at the angles too, this angle in yellow is the same with that angle in yellow. What else? This angle in blue is the same with that angle in blue. This angle in purple, the 90 degrees, is the same with that angle 90 degrees. So they're exactly the same. So congruent sides and congruent angles. Next, which of the following figures are congruent? Remember, you're looking at two parts of it, the corresponding angles and the corresponding sides. So let's look at this. You have a 4.7, you got a 4.7, you don't have a 4.7, so definitely I'm not going to choose you. All right, what else? You got a 3.3, you have the 3.3 centimeters. What else? You have the 6.8, you have the 6.8. See, look at this. Exactly all the corresponding sides are congruent. What else? Look at the angles now. You have a 38 degrees. There's the 38 degrees. You have a 116 degrees. It matches the 116 degrees there. What else? This one has a 26 degrees. It matches the other 26 degrees there. So what can we say? We can say now that we can safely say that triangle 1, this is number 1, okay, is, and triangle number 3 are exactly congruent. Congruent. See that symbol? Meaning the measures of the sides and the measures of the angles are equal in these two triangles, corresponding sides and corresponding angles. When you think of corresponding, think of it as matching. Now, corresponding sides and corresponding angles. For some, it is confusing. Check this out. Corresponding sides are pair of sides that have the same relative position in two congruent figures. Same position. If it's on the left side, it should also be on the left side. So that's why a perfect match. Corresponding angles are a pair of angles that have the same relative position to in corresponding figures. Check this out. AB, where is AB? I named this as AB. I use my blue marker. AB corresponds to DE. Look at that blue, DE. I won't match it with DF, right? Because they should have the same length. What else? Look at BC. BC is the bottom length. It should match exactly EF. There one. See that? I won't match BC with DE because they have different sizes. Now I will match AC with what? DF. See that? Even the way I name the 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 segment, the letters should also match. So now let's focus on the angles. Let's look at D, angle D. Let's use the red one. Angle D matches angle A. See that? What else? Angle E, let's use the yellow. Angle E matches what? Angle B. There you go. Angle B. And the other one, let's use the blue. Angle F. Angle F, this one. Angle F is this one. Matches or corresponds to angle C. There you go. Perfect match. Correspond. Next, using marks in diagrams. So marks are very important in diagram, and it can be used to determine which parts are congruent. Okay, because people are very visual. Just by one looking, we want to know which ones are congruent. Now let's focus on the angles. Angle G is this one. All right. Angle G, I use a single, look at this. They used a single arc in red. Therefore, it corresponds to angle J, which is also a single arc. Now, for angle F, they use double arcs. Double arcs. So that corresponds with what? Angle I also use a double arc, meaning these doubles would match, these singles would match, and therefore the last one, angle H corresponds to angle K. All right. Now, you can also use single arcs at each angle which tick marks on the arcs to which the angles are congruent. Now, check this out. I'm not just comparing the angles, I'm also comparing the segments. Look at this. A single tick mark here, a single tick mark there. See that? This one corresponds to the single tick mark there, meaning they are exactly the same length. Okay, what else? You could also use a single tick mark, double now, not single, but double, meaning it's different from the other one, matches to this double tick mark. What else? On the other side, I want to call you this one, triple tick marks, also corresponds to those triple tick marks. So you don't need to name them. Just by visually looking, you would know which one corresponds or which one matches or which one is relatively the same as the other one. So remember that. Use marks to identify which parts are congruent. Finding congruent figures. Based on the markings, which figures are congruent? How would I know that? They don't have numbers. The segments were not measured and the angles were not measured. But remember what we learned, you can know which ones are congruent by looking at the marks. This has a single tick mark which matches this. Okay, this doesn't have a single tick mark, so it doesn't match any of these two. This one has a double tick mark that matches this, same length. This has triple tick marks that matches that. So therefore, we can conclude that this one is not congruent because the sizes don't match. We conclude that since the parts are all the same size, okay, see that? The triangle themselves must be the same. They're congruent. This one, these two. Triangle ABC and HBC. J, K, but not the middle one. Now, remember our congruent symbol? We've seen this a while ago. That, how do you read that? You read it as is congruent to. So you could say XY, this XY is congruent to segment PQ. What else? Angle A is congruent to angle J. This one, angle J. Got it? All right. Writing congruency statement. Okay. Math teachers don't want to use big words. They make statements using symbols. A congruency statement indicates that figures are congruent. Okay, how do you make a statement? Congruent vertices are listed in the same position in the congruency statement. What do you mean by that? The letters should match the exact corresponding parts. For example, I call this I, J, K. Okay, I started with I followed by J and K. Therefore, I could write triangle IJK is congruent to, will I start with MLM, MLN? No. Will I name it this as NLM? No. I should follow the same sequence, right? Same position. I could call this as LMN. There you go. LMN. I will not mix these letters which doesn't match the first triangle. Now, same with the segments. I could call this segment IK. Where is IK? This is IK. All right. Will I name this as NI? Will I name LM or MN? If I started with I will also name this starting with L. LN. So I could write this now. IK is congruent to, let me write it here, LLN. Okay, not NL. So you can identify, you can also use a congruency statement to identify congruent segments. Just by looking at those letters, you would know which part matches or corresponds to the other one. For example, triangle ABC. I started naming this as A, B, C. Okay. So how will I match it? Will I start with D? You started with the the point near the 90 degrees. So where is the point near the 90 degrees? So it's here. I started with the E. So if I started with the E, then will I name the longer one? This one? The letter F? No. I will start from E followed by D and then F. So how do I write it? EDF. See, I follow a sequence, the one in blue. But I could do another one. How do I do that? I could start with BCA. If I start with BCA, I start with, look at the purple, B followed by C, then A. All right. So I could, if I start from here, that means I would start from D here. D followed by the farther one, F, then E. See that? And of course, there's another way. What's the other way? CAB. Can I see how do I do the CAB? Start with this, followed by the 90 degrees, then going there. All right, so that means I would start with F, going to the 90 degrees, and then followed by the D. See that? So you could name it different ways. They are congruent, but be sure the letters, the vertices do match.